roll so that we can establish a quorum. Nathan?
Michelle Simcox.
Here.
Representative Mark White. Do we have a designee for Chairman White?
Designee is here.
Okay. David Connor.
Here.
Sarah Lundberg.
Here.
Ben Torres.
Here.
Eddie Pruitt.
Here.
Chris Henson. Sarah Morrison is going to be dialing in. So I'll just list myself as her designee in the meantime. And for Frida Hammock, we got Christy Brown.
I'm here.
Penny Schwinn.
Do you have Mary Ann Dursky in for?
Yeah, I can. Marianne, if you're good with being the designee, we'll just list you. And Dory Hicks for Commissioner Bryson.
Here.
Cliff Lippard.
Here.
Marlon Davis.
Here.
Bob Eby.
Here.
Mickey Hall. Linda Wesson for Jason Mumpower, Comptroller of the Treasury.
Here.
Robin Fairclough.
Here.
Dale Lynch. Mayor McDonald had to be absent today. Jessica Himes. Catherine, you want to be designated for?
Here for budget.
Cool. And Kurt Drumbarger.
Here.
All right. I'm sure you definitely have a quorum.
Thank you, Nathan. So we have a quorum and we are duly convened, and I'm going to turn it back to Nathan for the statement of necessity to conduct this meeting electronically.
Madam Chair, this is Bob Eby. Can I mention Mary Ann Dursky just sent a chat that she can't hear anybody. So I didn't know if you'd seen that or not.
I thought she said she had an audio problem, so let me just. She cannot hear us at all. I'm going to check that.
That's what she said.
Audio, I cannot hear anyone. That's unfortunate. Is there something Elizabeth can do to help her and troubleshoot with her? We do want her to be able to hear.
I just sent her the phone number to dial in.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And I think Sarah's having trouble dialing in as well. She's having some internet issues.
Nathan, back to you for the statement of necessity.
Yes, ma'am. To Robert Green, Director of Publications, Office of the Secretary of State. Dear Mr. Green, pursuant to state law, the BEP Review Committee by and through the State Board of Education hereby submits this letter as its determination of necessity for its committee meeting held via teleconference at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time on the 31st of October, 2022. Pursuant to TCA, the BEP Review Committee must meet to approve its annual report. Because members of the committee reside across the state, it was determined that a physical quorum of the members could not be established in Nashville for the purposes of this meeting. As such, the committee met via electronic conference on 31 October to continue its work. Statement of necessity for the teleconference meeting was made during the meeting by Nathan James, etc. And with that, we are legal, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Nathan. And without objection, the recording of our last meeting will serve as the minutes. Without objection, so ordered. We'll move into our main agenda item, which is the review and edit of the annual report, which you should have received last week. So Nathan, I'll turn it over to you and Erica to take us through it.
Thank you. And I'd ask Erica if you want to share your screen and put it up there. Just to David, welcome. Good to see you, sir. David Thurman's joined us. So it was kind of interesting that the way the new funding formula, the TISA Act passed, it because of the way the enacting dates were listed out, there was still a legal obligation for this final BEP report. Obviously, the committee did not come together this year to create a list of suggested changes to the BEP because all of that process was pretty well obviated by the passage of TISA. I can say, and I'm sure that others involved in the process would agree, that the years of advocacy put in by the members of this committee were very instructive. I would say both to the legislature and to the administration. Of course, I don't speak on their behalf, but what you saw was a consistent theme of trying to hit on the points that this committee has made as its priorities over time. And I think that's something that the committee can be very proud of. The concept of this report was to do what was required in statute, while at the same time recognizing the reality of the situation, that this is the final report of the BEP review committee, as it's the final year of the BEP. So with that, we scaled things down to the extent possible, while still including all that could be included, and just put in some to the point statements about where we are, and came together that way so that we would be faithful to the law without it being overly voluminous work. So with that, Erica, if you want to run through, I have not received any edits from any member on the report itself. So from that, I've ascertained or come to the conclusion that perhaps members are generally okay with what they've got there.
All right. I assume you can all see my screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
Ken, but Erica, before you proceed, I don't know if everybody else can see what I'm seeing. There's something that is instructing a rearrangement of the videos in stages. So do you see that on your screen, or is it just me that's seeing it? Maybe it's my screen. No?
I don't see anything like
Okay.
that. Madam
Okay.
Chair.
I apologize for that. Apparently, somehow that popped up at my end. Sorry.
No problem. I've been having technical difficulties this morning as well. So, as usual, we have at the beginning of the report the table of contents, and then there is a listing of both last year's BEP committee members and the current year BEP committee members. So it's pretty typical. And then in the work of the committee section, we have made, or rather Nathan has made, some edits to this section just to reflect the fact that this will be the final BEP report as a result of the passage of TISA. It explains why we are still legally required to have this report despite the passage of TISA, but then it explains that this will be the last one, and it has a link to the section of Tennessee statute in which TISA is contained. We still have down here at the bottom of the page the BEP committee guiding principle statement, which was adopted by this committee a couple of years ago. And then there is the TCA statute that establishes this committee. So this is the statute that is going to be repealed on January 1st of 2023, but at the moment it is still in effect. Any questions or comments about this page? All right. Moving on, the executive summary is very brief this year. It just indicates a shorter version of the work of the committee. It has a list of the committee's recommendations from last year, an indication that the committee is making no new recommendations this year, and then lists items that are included in this report, including the notable action items, salary equity analysis, and review of teacher salaries for the U.S. Southeastern region. In terms of updates on last year's BEP committee recommendations, of course, the major update here is that TISA was adopted. We do have in the appendix of this report the set of slides that were presented to this committee earlier this year that provide an overview of TISA. And so we are just including information here about, as Nathan said earlier, the previous recommendations of the committee were obviated by the adoption of TISA. There will be a TISA review committee in the future. It's just this is the final BEP review committee. In terms of recommendations, there aren't any this year. Notable action items, we have only the meetings of this committee and the adoption of the annual report, which is taking place right now. Down in the salary equity analysis, we have basically all the same information as we would have had in prior years. So it shows a comparison of the Tennessee average licensed educator salary compared to an estimate from the National Education Association of the average educator salary for the Southeastern region. There are additional tables showing the progression of weighted average salary in Tennessee over time, going all the way back to 2004. This table here shows the difference between the minimum and maximum weighted average salary and actual averaged licensed salary in 2022, and also indicates the number of systems above and below average. This table here indicates the range between the maximum and minimum weighted average salary, and also the coefficient of variation, which is explained more in the text, but is basically a measurement of how closely clustered around the average weighted average salaries are. You can see from this graph that the coefficient of variation has gone up significantly since last year. And finally, here we have a table that shows the funding gap between the BEP instructional salary component and the actual average licensed salary, which this year that funding gap was a little over $8,000 or 16.6%. And that's for the 2022 fiscal year. We have the regional in-state salary disparity review, which basically goes through different regions of the state and indicates whether salary disparities in those regions are generally increasing or decreasing. We have the immediate trend in between fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22, and then a longer trend over 18 years going back to fiscal year 2004. There's a summary of that as well. And then finally, we have the review of teacher salaries for the U.S. Southeastern region. This data is from the National Education Association, which provides the most consistent data on teacher salaries across states. They're a bit difficult to compare because of each state's different funding and salary formulas, but we've used this data for several years to compare Tennessee salaries to other Southeastern states. And then that takes us to the appendices. There are no appendices this year regarding the amount of funds that would be needed to provide additional counselors or nurses, as we've had in the past. And that's just because we don't have those recommendations in the report this year. Obviously, we still think that those are important issues, but since the BEP is going away, it wouldn't make sense to have BEP calculations for those positions in here. We do have weighted average salaries and salary disparities by region. Apologies for cattail if you see that in the frame. And so I'll just go through those very quickly. These are the same tables that we have in here every year. They've just been updated for fiscal year 22. And they show within each region, compared to the top paying district in that region, how do other districts compare in the salary that they offer? And how has that changed over time? There's a list of weighted average salary by school system for all of the school systems in the state. Here's the slides I mentioned that were presented to this committee in June with an overview of TISA. So those go on for a while. There's also a link to the online version of those slides. So there is a statement here about the Salary Transparency Act of 2019. This requires LEAs to report to the Tennessee Department of Education about how they are using additional funding for teacher salaries. At the time that this report was being prepared, the TDOE had not yet received financial reports from all LEAs, so this will need to be included as an addendum to the report. We will not be able to include it on the version of the report that we are adopting today. We have the appendix showing our meeting agendas. The one for today is still blank, but I will obviously fill that in before we submit the final version. And then we have bibliography, and that is the entire report. So happy to take any suggestions for edits at this time.
Are there any suggested edits or comments from members? Okay, we're hearing none. Nathan, I think we typically at this juncture would take a vote to approve
Right, and
the
what
report
I
as
would
presented.
suggest is that the motion be to adopt the draft report as the report of the committee, authorizing the staff to make technical edits, i.e. putting in today's agenda, or to fix any typographical errors. So you could say just adopting motion to adopt the report while authorizing staff to make technical edits. And then we could take a roll call vote.
So I'll
And,
ask, but I'll ask if there's someone willing to make that motion and ask for a second. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt
This is
the,
Bob Eby. I move.
okay, Mr. Eby makes the motion. Is there a second?
This is Dale, Dale Lynch. I'll make a second.
Dale Lynch provides a second. Any discussion? Okay, so Nathan, you'll call the roll.
Michelle Simcox,
Yes.
Colleen for Chairman White.
Yes.
And I'm also on the Zoom now.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, welcome.
Thank you. Just had a little difficulty getting on, but yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. David Connor,
Yes.
Senator Lundberg,
Yep.
Eddie Pruitt,
Yes.
Ben Torres,
Yes.
Chris Henson. I'll be designee for Sarah Morrison and vote aye. Christy Brown for Frida Hammock,
Yes.
Marianne Dursky for Commissioner Schwinn,
Pass.
Dory Hicks for Commissioner Bryson,
Pass.
Cliff Lippard,
Yes.
Marlon Davis,
Yes.
Bob Eby,
Yes.
Mickey Hall, Linda Wesson for Comptroller Mumpower,
Pass.
Robin Fairclough,
Yes.
Dale Lynch,
Yes.
Keith McDonald is absent, Catherine Hare for Jessica Himes,
Pass.
and Kurt Dronbarger.
Yes.
Madam Chairman Hartgrove.
Aye.
Fifteen ayes, 1, 2, 3, 4 passes.
The ayes have it, and the motion to approve with amendments that may be necessary has been approved. Thank you all very much for that. And Erica, thank you so much for taking us through the report so very smoothly. Nathan, turning it over to you for next steps.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would say tremendous shout out to Marianne and her team, to Erica with all the work that's been done there, and also to everybody else. You know, we've been quite a road, haven't we? As far as next steps go, I'm going to ask my legislative chairs there, Chairman White and and Chairman Lundberg, so the law requires 4 meetings. What I've been thinking about, but I wouldn't do it without your blessing, is that we just kind of set 2 dates and come together, not have a quorum, and have those 2 meetings qualify as the 3rd and 4th meeting required under the law, rather than kind of tell everybody we're going to spend 30 minutes on a meeting that won't necessarily amount to anything. One of the things that the House and Senate does is if they want to preserve a legislative day, they'll call the roll. But if there's an insufficient number to form a quorum, that's it, and move on from there. But I wanted to get Chairman White and Chairman Lundberg, your thoughts and your blessing before I said that we'd necessarily do that for the last 2 meetings.
I don't know if Mark wants to go further, but I would tell you that I would not officially say that would be sanctioned, but I would think that was a good idea. And I'll let everyone read between those lines.
I'm glad you went first, Senator. And that is acceptable to me also.
Very good, Chairman. In that case, the next steps, I think, would be we'll post a couple of dates on the website, and what I'll likely do is just come on, call the roll. There won't be a quorum. We'll enter that as the third meeting, and then do it again for the 4th meeting, so that we've obeyed this law that's going away. But I think that's pretty well the next steps. I'm sure that members are interested in what will be the board's approach to the TISA review committee. And of course, we've got a couple of years down the road before that committee would be appointed. The concept being that you'd have to have 2 or 3 years of the TISA Act being in effect before we could know necessarily what would need to change. The statute on it is identical to this one. So, my prognostication is that, members on this committee, may have a chance to serve on the next committee. Some of you serve on this committee as designated in statute, and others simply fit into various categories. So we'll have to say when the time comes, don't be surprised to get a phone call. But the chair of the State Board of Education at that point in time will certainly be giving that some thought. But if you do have interest, a couple years down the road in service, I would say, please feel free to reach out. And you all know my cell, how to get a hold of Lillian and Bob, and so that's the best I can tell you on next steps, unless, Madam Chair, you think there's something else I should cover.
Nathan, I do think that you have covered what we need to be thinking about for the future. And unless there's something else you want to say, I do have closing remarks that I want to make. And I also, after I conclude my remarks, I do want to give other members an opportunity to speak if they would like to. But is there anything else from you, Nathan? Because I think you've covered it all.
I mean, nothing except just a heart of gratitude, for everybody, as having, I guess was Dolores's designee back years ago, and then, taking the process to one where we kind of narrowly focused our attention from about 2016 on. I think we've seen some big wins, and I just want to, from my heart, just give everybody a big high five from Nashville for the work that they've done and the way they've kind of really invested their time and efforts into this process. That's all. That's just on a personal level.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Nathan. Well, my comments are somewhat similar to yours, in that I do want to thank each of you for your service. And many of you have been serving on this committee long before I joined the committee as chair 5 years ago. And that was at the time I became chair of the State Board of Education. But I do also want to extend my heartfelt appreciation and thanks for each of you for the contributions that you have made for whatever amount of time you have served. And I know some of you have been serving for quite some time. And everything that you've done have been so important to the needed changes that we've made over the years and long before I came on board, as I said. And it's really difficult to single out any one person in particular, but I definitely want to mention the incredibly important work that we needed to have at our disposal, and that's to Mary Ann Dursky. Without Mary Ann Dursky, all these years doing the work that she does behind the scenes, and I think,
John.
and can you all hear me?
No, don't worry. This is not CON this time.
Anyway, I do want to thank Mary Ann Dursky so much, because the tables and the calculations, the computations that we see in reports, and the work that she does behind the scenes day in and day out in her day job with the BEP funding formula has just been outstanding and remarkable beyond belief. And she truly has been, in my humble opinion, an unsung hero in all of this work. So I had to say that. And then special thanks to Nathan James for his due diligence throughout the years that I've had the opportunity to work with him. His due diligence throughout this time and keeping us on schedule and on point to fulfill our responsibilities. So thank you so much for that, Nathan. And then, of course, Erica Light, who joined our team several years back, and she's been working closely with Nathan, as you all now know, with completing this report and, of course, reporting it out to us today. So I'm sorry if I miss someone. I do not intend to miss anyone. And I do certainly want to thank our House and Senate chairs for the work that they do, and being behind us all the way, and being members of this committee. So thank you too as well. Are there comments from any other members before we move into adjournment? Okay, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And without objection, we are adjourned.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Appreciate y'all's hard work.
Thank you.